In 1994, Rwanda experienced one of the fastest and deadliest genocides of the 20th century. In just 100 days, nearly 800,000 men, women, and children were murdered, most by their own neighbors. How did a nation of shared language, culture, descend into such horror? Rwanda's two main ethnic groups were the Hutu majority and the Tutsi minority. For centuries, the difference was mostly social. Tutsis were often wealthier cattle owners, while Hutus were farmers. They intermarried and shared culture and language. But colonization changed everything. The Belgians, who controlled Rwanda in the early 20th century, imposed rigid ethnic labels. They favored Tutsis in education, administration, and military roles, while Hutus were marginalized. Identity cards officially stamped Hutu or Tutsi reinforced divisions, sowing resentment. When Rwanda became independent in 1962, the Hutu majority seized power. Many Tutsis fled to neighboring countries after waves of ethnic violence. Over decades, propaganda, exclusion, and memories of past oppression hardened Hutu hatred toward Tutsis. In exile, Tutsis formed the Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, in Uganda, aiming to reclaim their homeland. In 1990, they invaded Rwanda, sparking a civil war. The Hutu-led government intensified anti-Tutsi propaganda. Radio stations broadcast warnings. Tutsis were cockroaches who must be eliminated. Extremist militias, known as the Interahamwe, were trained and armed to carry out mass killings. By 1993, Rwanda signed the Arusha Accords, a peace agreement granting power sharing with the RPF. But extremists rejected it. They began stockpiling weapons and planning the extermination of Tutsis. On April 6th, President Juvenal Habyarimana's plane was shot down over Kigali. Immediately, government forces, militias, and Hutu civilians began killing Tutsis and moderate Hutus. Roadblocks were set up across the capital, where Tutsis were identified by ID cards. Ordinary citizens were coerced into killing or assisting militias. Schools became sites of mass slaughter. The genocide spread with terrifying speed. Villages were emptied, and countless families were torn apart. Many were forced to endure unimaginable suffering. The violence was not random. Militias were organized and armed, driven by propaganda that spread fear and hatred, portraying the Tutsi population as a threat. Meanwhile, the RPF faced overwhelming odds. Cut off and heavily outnumbered, they struggled at first to advance. They relied on guerrilla tactics, striking military positions and key roads. Every step forward came at a high cost, with fierce resistance on both sides. International forces were present, but their mandates were limited. The UN had peacekeepers, but they were forbidden to intervene in most attacks. Western nations, still haunted by the US failure in Somalia, avoided involvement. Requests for airstrikes or reinforcements were denied. The genocide proceeded largely unchecked, and Rwanda's death toll rose with each passing day. By June 1994, after weeks of careful maneuvering, the RPF launched a coordinated offensive. Unlike the portrayal of an instant victory, this advance was brutal and slow. They fought through roadblocks and heavily defended towns. Militias ambushed them repeatedly, slowing progress. Civilians caught in the crossfire suffered horrifically. After weeks of intense combat, the RPF reached Kigali in July. capturing the capital and finally halting the genocide. By then, hundreds of thousands had already been killed, and the country lay in ruins.